Well, guys, I've seen 16 movies so far from 2024. We've reached the end of April, so why not do a tier list on what I've seen so far? Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a good one today. I'm the movie ranker, and today I'm doing something different. I'm doing this tier ranking. I've done them in the past on my music channel and on my old movie channel, but I don't think I've done any on the movie ranker yet. So this should be interesting. I've seen 16 films so far released this year in 2024. Let's try to place them on this tier ranker thing. My categories are my tiers. At the very top, we got masterpiece, 10 out of 10, amazing, 9 out of 10, great, good, just okay, and then below average, which is around a 5, bad, which is like a 3 and a 4, and god awful, your ones and twos. So I apologize if this ranking is not the way you would rank it, because it's most likely not going to be. I have a few hot takes in here, just a fair warning. But yeah, let me know how you would rank these films. What's your favorite film so far of the year? Your least favorite? I'd love to hear it in the comment section. Without wasting any more time, let's dive right into this. Where are we going to start? Let's start with a movie. Oh, let's just start over here. Argyle. To me, this was below average. Not a fan of this film. I thought the storyline is kind of dumb, especially in the second half. We've seen similar stories, these type of spy flicks before, done better. If I'm being honest, I do have to say though, this one has a phenomenal cast all around. Some really big names in here from Samuel L. Jackson, Henry Cavill. They're all here. Some great actors. Their performances are good as well. It's just the story wasn't that interesting, if you ask me. And there's some dumb action scenes. Like in the second half, there was a scene where they figure skate or they skate over concrete that has oil spilt over it. And it's like, what? And I think they just like strap blades under like knives under their boots or something. Very dumb stuff. And the movie at times tries to be serious, at times not, and it can't really seem to pick what it wants to do. So yeah, Argyle just wasn't for me. It's below average. It was like a 5 out of 10. Can't give it any more than that. Just my opinion though. Up next, what should we do? Let's do The Beekeeper. Now, this is a movie I had very little expectations going in, and I found it to be great. At first, I thought it was good. I just rewatched it. I'm moving it up to great. I think it really deserves it. Jason Statham is always fun to watch in action flicks. He really elevates movies, if you ask me, everything he's in, and this is no different. A familiar story here. It's something like John Wick style. I hate to use John Wick because he's not the first type of action movie with great world building, but it is obviously the more popular franchise out right now in regards to that. But yeah, the action is great. There's some good gore in there. I like the world building of the beekeepers, how he's literally taking care of bees when he's retired, but that was also his like code name as a crazy soldier, this mercenary or whatever. The best of the best. They were the beekeepers and they kept the hive safe. And yeah, the villains are despicable in here, which makes it even better when Statham is taking them out. They're these scammers who prey on the weak and the old and taking their money online. A real problem we have in the world right now. So I thought this was just a whole lot of fun. There's some pretty crazy scenes in there too, like the gas station scene with the Gatling gun and everything. Very cool stuff. And I just had a really fun time with the beekeeper. And I'm surprised more people aren't loving it like I am, but it is what it is. What's next? Let's talk about the movie Damsel, Netflix original, and I'm gonna put it under just okay. I think this was a good enough Sunday watch. Not something I'll probably revisit, but if it was on TV, I wouldn't mind sitting down and watching it again. Um, Interesting story. I feel like they took a few influences from The Hobbit in regards to this dragon in a cave. Um, and an interesting little story how these rich family sacrifice family members to this cave so the dragon will leave them alone. There's a whole backstory behind it, and there's a twist involving the girl that they send in the sacrifice. She wasn't really blood related. And it makes for an interesting story. How does she survive against this dragon that's trying to kill her? And just, I like the way it played out in the end. I feel like the middle dragged a tiny bit, which is probably what brought down my score. But the first act and the last act were pretty fun. A decent little Netflix original. Up next, let's talk about the new Ghostbusters. I just watched that a couple days ago. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Seen a lot of hate for it online. For me, it again is just okay. Not terrible by any means. It definitely is a step down from Afterlife, though, especially getting that cast back, the younger group of people, and we obviously get the older guys too from the original, Bill Murray and all them. They're great. I just feel like this movie lacked urgency. The villain only really makes a big impact in the last 20-25 minutes of the film. The first three quarters is basically the gang stopping these weaker, smaller threats of ghosts and whatnot that are kind of unrelated, and just meeting up with different characters. And there's a lot of exposition and backstory and learning new things about this new villain and how to defeat him and everything. There's kind of a little too much of that, I feel. Should have got more villain in here, but it does feel like a Ghostbusters movie. It's still perfectly rewatchable. I found it really entertaining, even though some of the dialogue were cringeworthy, and I feel like they need to let go of these legacy characters. I feel like they throw them in here because that's the only reason why people will go see this film. But they really need to work on their younger generation characters to make us love them enough that we don't need the legacy characters. They kind of rely on them, but yet they're here kind of for nothing. They don't get very much screen time. Dan Aykroyd probably gets the most. But yeah, it's an okay flick. It's not the worst Ghostbuster movies, but it's definitely far from being the best Ghostbuster movie as well. So yeah, it was just okay for me, but not a bad flick if you ask me. You want to talk about bad flicks though? Why not move right on to Madam Web? Madam Web. Um, Technically I would put this under bad, but I think I'm going to put it under god awful because this is a big budget studio film. Sony, they got the rights to a lot of the Spider-Man spin-off characters and whatnot, and they are wasting their time with them. They're not putting in the effort or the work, the energy. It feels like they're just trying to make a quick buck off of these. It was like a huge ass Pepsi commercial, basically. The characters weren't interesting. They try to tie in Spider-Man in there, and it kind of just made things worse, if you ask me. Again, this is more like a 3 out of 10. I would probably put this in the bad, but since this is a big studio like Sony who made this film, there's no reason for all these shenanigans that they did on us. So it deserves to be in the god awful tier, if you ask me. And that's where it's going to stay. Like, people aren't accountable for their actions in this film. They steal a taxi early on in the film, and they use it basically the whole movie, and no one even realizes that it's a stolen taxi. And it's just little things like that that bother me. And the villain is a very forgettable villain. So that's Madam Web. Enough talking about that. Yeah, not very good. Next up, I got a train going by. Hopefully you guys don't hear it too much, but we're gonna try to continue. Next up, let's go with the movie Immaculate, starring Sydney Sweeney. I thought this movie was good, and let me tell you, I'm not into religious horror movies. It's one of my least favorite subgenres, the supernatural religious thing. Stuff like The Nun or even The Conjuring, while they're really well made movies, they're not exactly my thing. Surprisingly, Immaculate was pretty good. I'm putting it in the good category, which is great for this type of film since it's not for me. But yeah, I really dug the direction they took this one in. It was had a lot of mystery to it. You're trying to figure out what's going on with the main character, played by Sydney Sweeney. She is a nun who goes to this nunhood place. They look after the older nuns. It's kind of like a nursing home for them. But there's weird things happening. She becomes pregnant out of nowhere, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. And I feel like the mystery is great. The big reveal on what's actually going on, I thought was also great. I didn't see it coming. It's not your average storyline for this type of movie. I thought they did a pretty good job with that, kind of mixing science and religion a little bit. The ending was kind of a shocker too, but I would have liked to tweak the ending just a bit, but it was still pretty shocking. Again, if this was my type of movie going in, this one would have probably made to great or even amazing. But since this is not my thing, I'm going to stick it in the good, but I still really think it was well made for this type of flick. What's next? Let's go with Monkey Man. Monkey Man is a pretty new movie right now. Just came out, I think, around the beginning of April. It's only been out for a few weeks. I'm going to stick her in the good. Now, when this movie started, the first 45 minutes or so, in my mind, I'm like, this is going to be the best movie of the year, hands down. It was so good, the first half. I was giving it like a 9 out of 10 in my head right off the bat. And then in the second half, it did a few things that really wasn't for me. The way it started, it just put you right into this world. There wasn't a much build up, and I was really enjoying that. The pacing was phenomenal. This guy seeking revenge, but you don't really know why, is working his way up through the totem pole of the enemies, sneaking his way in, getting close to them so he can exact his revenge, and they have no idea what's going on. Very interesting story. What's his name? Dev Patel. I want to check. I don't want to screw up his name. I suck with names, guys. Um, yeah, Dev Patel. He starred in the movie. He's a pretty big actor. And he also directed it. It was also his first movie he ever directed. And I thought he did a great job directing. And this movie's set in India, but it's made in Hollywood. It has that weird mix of Hollywood and kind of like a foreign film put together, which makes it unique. I just feel like in the second half, the pacing dropped quite a bit for me. The story kind of lost its footing, especially when he starts taking, like, ending up with this other tribe and hiding and takes these drugs and these hallucinogens. And it kind of puts the movie on hold, especially in regards to the revenge side of the story until like the very end, which is unfortunate. I don't know. It's just I didn't like the way where the story went in the second half. It tried to deal with too many things. I feel it tried to give us more backstory on why he's getting revenge, which is a good thing. It tried to get really emotional. It tried to get political. It tried to do too many things, juggle too many things at once, while also being this pretty intense action movie. So yeah, I felt like it tried to do too much in the second half, which brought it down for me just a bit. Maybe on rewatch, I will definitely rewatch this one. Maybe it will make its way up to great like Beekeeper did, but we'll have to see. But the action was great. There's this really long action scene that lasts like 15 minutes long, around the 40-minute mark or so in the film, and it's really well done. We got a little bit of gory scenes in there, and the the action is great. It's how do you say it? The choreography of the action is really well done. The trailer to this movie is a bit misleading. It makes it seem like this revenge, like underground fight club type movie, which we do get a little bit of that in there in concern of the fight club, but not a lot. Not like the trailer shows. So yeah, Monkey Man, if you're going into this, don't go in thinking it's going to be a movie that the trailer shows you. It's a bit different, but it's still good. And like I said, I'll rewatch it. Perhaps it will go up in the future. What's next? Let's go with Late Night with the Devil. Now, to me, this is the best movie of the year. It's great. Again, perhaps on rewatch it will move up to amazing because right now it's at like an 8.5 for me. I thought they did a really good job with the 70s aesthetic. This is a talk show taking place in the 70s. It's like a found footage type flick in a way. And we get to see what happens on a Halloween special in 1977 on this show. And there's an exorcism, not an exorcism, but a girl that's possessed that goes on the show. And you got a skeptic on there and everything. And I think the performances are all great. All the characters are great. I especially like the performance of the young girl on here. I just want to find out what's her name. Um, Ingrid Torelli. That actress did a phenomenal job as Lily, this like teenage girl who's possessed. Man, does she give the best performance of this film hands down? So good. But my main man, David, David Dasmalchian. I don't want to screw up his name, but I probably did. He's known for being side characters in a lot of movies. He never really got a leading role, so it's great to see him here in the leading role, and he killed it as well. And I just really like how thought provoking this film was. Again, it's built on mystery, on figuring out how's it going to play out, what's really going on with this demon and everything that's in this little girl. And the way it ends is a pretty shocking ending. And I like that they don't really hand feed you everything or beat you over the head with its messages. It makes you think about what's really going on. They give you enough pieces to put together the puzzle, but it's very thought provoking, I thought. And I just thought it was extremely well made. And yeah, great everything. There's some people rating this a half a star on Letterboxd and IMDb and all that because they use AI in the movie. Now, I understand I don't want AI ever in movies either. But once you find out what it was used for in this film, it's a really minor thing. It was used for like when they go to commercial break on the talk show, it'd be like, we'll be right back. And like the logo or the page that they use, the art that they use was made from AI. And it's only like a couple seconds of shots in the film. It's not long. So I don't think we should discredit this whole movie for that. Just want to say. But I absolutely loved Late Night with the Devil. Absolutely check it out. What next? Let's go with Roadhouse, the remake. Now, to me, this was, again, just okay. It could have been much better, but you're competing against a classic. I mean, and it probably didn't help that I watched the original a day before watching this remake. Really, not a great thing to compare them to because the original is so damn good. And Patrick Swayze, no one is like him. But yeah, I think this Roadhouse movie is pretty good. I like that it doesn't take itself too seriously. Like it kind of does, but when Conor McGregor shows up, it becomes pretty cheesy. But I think the movie kind of needed that, right? It gave it a fun energy in the second half. Even though McGregor's not a good actor, but it worked for this role of him being this like crazy person, this pretty psychotic in here. And Jake Gyllenhaal did a pretty good job as Dalton. He's definitely a different version of Dalton, not exactly as memorable or likable as the original, but still decent enough. And that's basically what I think about this whole film. It's just decent. It does get a little out of hand with some of the action, especially in the final act, like boats flying over buildings and the guy surviving and stuff. It's just really out there, like Fast and the Furious style. But for the most part, I did enjoy the Roadhouse remake, which was made by Amazon. It was an Amazon original, just to let you know. Up next, let's put something in the bad category. How about Night Swim? Let's talk about Night Swim because yeah, Night Swim is not a good movie. It's a January horror release and it keeps up with that reputation. It's not good. The concept's kind of good. I like that there's like these people have a pool in the back of their house that's haunted and it causes weird things to happen, people to get hurt and stuff. And the mystery behind it's pretty good, but the reveal is not really well executed. Wasn't a big fan of the big twist on what was going on. We don't get any good horror moments, cheap jump scares, and loud audio sounds. This one would have been better. The concept would have been better to work as like a Goosebumps episode or something, with this haunted pool. But yeah, as a actual horror film, I don't know if this is Blumhouse or not, but it has Blumhouse written all over it. Not very good. Definitely a bad January release. And the monster or whatever, it looked god awful, like terrible design and CGI. So yeah, that's that. Why don't we get the elephant out of the room? Dune Part 2. Oh, this is where everybody hates me. Okay, so I watched Dune Part 1 a day before Part 2 just for this tier list because I know everybody would want to see where I place it, and it's the biggest movie of the year, no doubt. It even beat out Shawshank Redemption for highest rated movie of all time at one point on IMDb. Don't know if it holds that title still, but it did. So I watched Dune Part 1, thought it was okay. Like, not just okay, I thought it was good, but not a masterpiece or anything like most people are saying. I love that you guys love it though. So then I popped on Dune Part 2 and I've heard much better things about this. I heard it's one of the best movies ever made. I watched it again. Very good, but it's just not my thing. I think the cinematography is top notch. The cast is unbelievable, and the performances are all great as well. The characters are perfectly fine, but they didn't pop to me like I wanted them to. They're not as memorable as they probably could be, but they do deal with a lot of characters, so I understand. And I haven't read the book either, so this seems to be a pretty good adaptation of that book. So yeah, the cinematography, the directing, the acting, everything is top notch. I think my problem lies with the story. While the story doesn't have plot holes or inconsistencies or whatnot, I wasn't saying, oh, that's stupid. But the story never wowed me about, all these houses fighting over Arrakis, this planet full of spice, which is very valuable. And it's almost like Game of Thrones style. These different houses or families backstabbing each other and being very conniving. It can be interesting, especially in part two, which I'm talking about right now, because we do get a little bit more action in the battle at the end and everything, and riding sandworms. But yeah, it's just not for me, guys. I think if they would have tweaked the ending just a bit on part two, I might have found it great. I do find it a bit better than part one, but still, it's a bit of a bittersweet ending, isn't it? Where the guy chooses our main man, the prophet, the Messiah. He chooses um, to be the new emperor with the emperor's daughter for the greater good of the universe, and he leaves behind his true love, which, terrible for her. I don't blame her for storming off and going off the ride on a worm. But yeah, it's just kind of bittersweet, He do the right thing? I don't know, but it wasn't exactly a fun ending. Not exactly the way I wanted it to end. I know not all endings can be happy, and especially me being a horror fan understands that. But yeah, it was kind of bittersweet. But the story, I just didn't find it that captivating to me. So it's going in the good category. And, you know, that's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine for you guys to think it's masterpiece. Watch it all you want. It's perfectly fine. But it's just not for me. I'm done defending myself. I feel like I had to with that one. All right. Up next, we got Lisa Frankenstein. Ooh, a very different type movie, kind of gothic horror comedy. And I think this one was good. Directed by Zelda Williams, interesting enough, Robin Williams' daughter, which is really cool. Stars Catherine Newton, which I think she gives her best performance yet. I seen her in things like Ant-Man 3, and what's that movie? Freaky, where she switches bodies, that horror movie with Vince Vaughn. She's great in that as well, but I think here she really shows that she's a great actress. Like, I thought she was great in the role. And her counter to her, Frankenstein, is the kid from Big Daddy, believe it or not. And he's okay, but I mean, he's just playing Frankenstein, so it's kind of whatever. I found the movie really picked up in the second half. I wasn't really into it in the first half, but once the second half came in, I started to get hooked in. I really started to enjoy the characters and what was going on with them. And that's when the gore starts to come in. She starts getting body parts for Frankenstein, and there's some good humor in there, some light-hearted moments, even though there's some twisted stuff going on there as well. And I thought that this was a fairly good film, which I think will be a cult classic in the future. It has that gothic, like Tim Burton style to it a little bit, which I think a lot of people resonate with, and it will stand the test of time, I believe. Even though I don't think it's a huge hit for 2024, it will maybe stand the test of time against most of these films. Who knows? We'll see. Up next, we'll talk about Ricky Stanicky. Now, this one, I debated, should I put it in below average or just okay? I think I'll put it in just okay for the simple fact that John Cena is hilarious in this. A movie about these childhood friends that made up a guy to blame everything on. When they got in trouble, they said, it was Ricky Stanicky. He got us to do it. And they've been using this their whole lives, even as adults. They're like, oh, we got to go do this thing for Ricky. So eventually these guys' wives and that want to meet him, so they have to actually find somebody to play Ricky Stenicki, and they hire John Cena, who is an actor or whatever in this film, and he is just hilarious, especially the songs he sings at the start. He makes a bunch of parody like cover songs like Weird Al style, but they all have to do with playing with yourself basically. Like a nice day for a wood whacking. Pretty funny. Yeah, that's hilarious. And me and some buddies at work still sing songs from this, his parody tracks. So yeah, I have to put it in just okay, just for that simple fact. But I feel like I started losing interest in the second half. It started becoming a little bit less funny and a little bit more serious. But yeah, it's still okay. A good enough movie for a Sunday watch. And I believe this was on Amazon Prime, if you're interested. Three left to go. Let's talk about Destroy. Was it Destroy My Neighbors or Destroy All Neighbors? I can't remember. My picture's cut off here. Destroy All Neighbors. I get confused because there's that video game Destroy All Humans, the alien video game, and then there's Zombies Ate My Neighbors, and I'm kind of mixing those two every time I think about this. But yeah, Destroy All Neighbors, a lower budget, I think a Shudder exclusive, about this guy who's in the prog rock and he's trying to come up with his own masterpiece, and it's kind of ruining his life. He's not spending time with his girl, he's screwing up his job and whatnot over this. And yeah, he starts to lose it. And he accidentally kills his neighbor, but his neighbor can still talk to him with just his head and whatnot. And he's played by Alex Winter, famous from Lost Boys and Bill and Ted. So it's cool to see him in here, and I think he was the one of the main producers for this flick. It's okay. It could have been way better with a better budget, a better script, but I do like all the little prog rock Easter eggs in there. There's some decent practical effects. Some of them don't look that great due to the budget. So, yeah, in the end, this is going below average for me. It has potential of being great, but it just didn't quite make it there. I felt like it should have had more prog rock music throughout and stuff. They should have went definitely deeper in the prog rock side of things, since that's supposed to be like one of the main themes of the movie. They missed out on that, but it's still kind of worth a watch if you're into schlocky horror comedies with lower budgets and you're in the prog rock. Maybe check this one out. And it's just cool to see Alex Winter in this one. He has a shit ton of makeup on here too and doing a really weird accent. So it is definitely weird. Two left. We got Love Lies Bleeding and Stop Motion. Stop Motion is very close to being great for me. I'm going to put it in the good. It's something like Monkey Man where they're borderline good, ready to go into great, but I'm just not quite ready yet. Stop motion, very bizarre, very depraved movie, very weird, not for the faint of heart. About this young woman who makes these stop motion movies with her mother, and then her mother gets sick and hospitalized, so she has to work on her own, and she's so used to just doing whatever her mother says that she can't really do things on her own, and so she ends up taking advice from this little girl that's in her apartment, and the little girl starts getting to do more twisted things with her little stop motion movie, like using at first is using meat for her little girl instead of using like puppet and wax, to using like a dead fox, like a dead animals as some of the characters, and it just keeps getting crazier. By the final act, she's willing to kill people in the apartment to make different characters for her movie. And the interesting part about this, it's very psychological, because I'm always thinking, was the girl real? Was the girl not real? That's kind of a mystery throughout, because no one else really seems to interact with her, and the main girl seems to be kind of losing her mind. And also, what's cool about this is that her life is kind of mirroring this little movie she's making. Whatever she makes in, say, Act 1, when she goes to sleep, that happens to her at night. Like, say if there's someone at the door in the stop motion movie, someone ends up at her door at night in real life. And it's a super interesting, it's definitely one that made me think for a while, but it's, again, not for the faint of heart. It's pretty depraved. It gets pretty sick at times, but yeah, I had a pretty good time watching it, if I'm being honest. And this and Monkey Man are two movies in the good category, can easily move up to great. We only got one left, guys. It's Love Lies Bleeding. a movie I never really heard about at all, but I seen more and more people rating it, especially my friends list on Letterboxd, and I'm like, huh, this must be a fairly well-known movie, and people seem to really enjoy it. So I gave it a shot. Stars Kristen Stewart and a few other people, Ed Harris and whatnot. It had again potential to be great. I'm putting it in good. This isn't exactly my type of movie. It's heavy on the drama and that, even though there's a lot of crime and it's kind of a thriller at its heart. But the first half is more drama heavy. Interesting characters. You got this one girl, two lesbians, and one of them starts taking steroids and starts to kind of lose her mind. Starts to get to her, and they both get involved in this murder. They happen to murder Dave Franco, which is a complete asshole in this film, so he gets what he deserves. And it's just interesting how all these characters are connected, even when you think characters aren't connected, they really are. And you got this whole family ties in here. You find out one of the main characters, his dad is a real kind of crime lord, and he deals in gun trafficking and whatnot. And he has a shady past of killing people in the town and that, and he has cops on his side. So yeah, really interesting movie. Great characters. I think a really interesting story. The last 10 minutes, I was like, what the hell is going on? The movie's very grounded and everything, but there's something that happens at the very end which is completely left field. I get it's supposed to be in the girl's mind, something that happens that's unnatural. Of course, it doesn't actually play out that way. But yeah, it was still good. I still enjoyed it. Now that I think of it, I may put this in the great category. Because the ending still wasn't that bad. I think I am. I'm gonna move Love Lies Bleeding up a notch. I'm gonna put it in the great. And I'm fairly satisfied with this list as of now. Yeah, I think I'm good with that. So there you have it. My 16 films I've seen from 2024 so far. Don't hate me too much in the comments about Dune Part 2. I know I'm in the minority. I feel like I have something wrong with me after seeing every single person I follow on Letterboxd give this a 10 out of 10 or a 5-star. It's like, well, is there something wrong with me? But yeah, it's okay, guys. So there you have it. That's all I got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you enjoy tier lists like this. Do you want to see more? I can do more in the future if it's something that you guys really want to see. And yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Until next time, thanks for watching.